2020, what a year.
I know.
Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
We've been kind of on a hiatus, and there's a reason for that. We have a big announcement coming up, so we'll explain that shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But first, since we are in new environs, obviously, we are shooting with also new equipment, so pardon the difference in quality or the difference in sound, but we're experimenting with something that Z put together, so hopefully it's something that we can use in the future.
Right. And it was easy to travel with.
Exactly. These days, traveling is a bit more difficult. I remember back in the day, just putting on an extra bag was what, at most $60. Now it's like $100, and they've limited the size of the carry-ons.
Yep. So
you had to cram a lot of things onto that plane.
I had to make it small and cute and carryable because I'm little.
Well, you have nice luggage.
Thank you.
I don't. I have like a tiny little shoulder bag, and then I just cram stuff into a duffel. So, one of the things we noticed in our little family vacation in the Pacific Northwest was that there are certainly places that are free and there are places that are not free.
Right.
And coming from a place that is not free, it was pretty refreshing.
It was. Even the mask wearing itself, not feeling like I was being judged for walking into a restaurant or a store and not having a mask on was very, very nice. I almost cried.
I mean, sure. Even here, there are plenty of places that'll still be fussy about the masks initially when you're entering, like especially the corporate chains and stuff. But once you get in there, everybody just took them off.
Yep.
And the employee would look at you and kind of give you a little wink, wink, nod, like, yeah, okay, I did my job. Yep. You go about your shopping experience. I don't actually care. The difference between that and where we usually live, because that's a blue city and everybody's mask holes out there, is that they would follow you.
Yeah.
They would take it to that next level. They would make a big stink out of it. They would try to publicly shame you. And hopefully, and I think that this is the true thing for a lot of people, is they would try to flex and get it to turn into something.
Yep.
I think they enjoy the confrontation.
Well, I told you what happened to my brother. He was walking in a store, like a big box store or something like that. And he's just been fed up with the masks. Because of his job, he had to wear it all through the spring when most people were laid off and stuff like that. And when people were going back to work.
They've been wearing it for months.
Yes.
Yeah.
When people were going back to work and having to wear the mask and were complaining. He's like, I've been wearing it for months. I can't. He says, I can't do it anymore. So he walks into this big box store and this lady starts following him and tells him he needs to put a mask on.
Follow you?
And he says, he looks at the lady, he says, 6 feet, please. And so she backs up, but she continues following him. And as he's walking away from her and she's following him saying, sir, you need a mask. Sir, you need a mask. He just keeps yelling, 6 feet, please. 6 feet, please.
6 feet, ma'am. Stay back.
I thought it was so funny.
Well, good for him, because what's funny is you watch all these viral videos of the confrontations that occur as a result of somebody like refusing to abide by some kind of mask policy in some kind of public place. It's always some other lunatic with the mask on improperly, like with their nose out, or it's like their mouth sticking out or something like that, or it's like hanging off one ear, but then they're like right in your face threatening you with violence. I'm like, well, now you've got the COVID, smart guy. Who's the real winner here?
They're shooting their spittle up your sinuses.
So clearly this is not about safety, right? It's about compliance and being able to flex what petty authority you can, because that's how it's always been. I knew that this would be a thing before they instituted the mask policy. I remember telling people this back in February. I was like, once they tell people to put the masks on, there will be people religiously lining up to enforce mask mandates.
Well, there were also probably the kids that were tattled all the time and probably got beat up when they were little.
It's that hall monitor syndrome.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm telling. We had this kid when we were little. When me and my brother were young, he'd go, I'm telling. And we used to hit him. And that's probably what we should do to the mask Nazis.
Well, that's what's happening. You see, that was a report out of Florida, I want to say. I could be wrong, but Florida would be the place for it, where some dude got himself hospitalized because he got the crap beat out of him for confronting 2 guys who weren't wearing masks.
Leave people alone.
Leave them alone, man. Just leave them alone.
Leave them alone.
You did not have to make that thing happen. You didn't have to end up in the hospital.
It's in your best interest.
Honestly, and nowadays, I wonder with the way things are going, are they ever going to let people out of their masks?
They better. They probably won't have a choice at some point. There'll be enough people that are fed up that just will stop wearing it.
Just become
and
obsolete.
Then if you have that little boutique in bougie part of whatever town, and you tell people like masks are required, they'll just stop shopping there. Like, I think people across the board, no matter their political leanings and their how much money they make, none of that's going to matter when people are going to get fed up wearing masks, because some people get sick wearing masks.
What are these reports coming out about? Like, you're not getting enough oxygen, and you're
breathing in.
You're breathing in a lot of other dirt and other detritus from your hands and stuff that you've been touching, and so it's actually more problematic. But everybody ignores those reports, though, and they always kind of compress that down in order to push the narrative that masks save lives.
Also, the jury's out on that.
We know this, but nobody wants to listen. It's you kind of. I think this Rubicon got crossed. I think in the end of May, where there was the people who were like, "Yeah, I'm not so sure about this whole mask business. I'll just do it to be polite or to keep you from like arresting me and being a pest." And then there was those people who were like religiously like, "You had to do this before you picked up a prune." You know what I mean? Like the mask became a religious artifact. And I think the questions ceased at that point. I don't think the studies mattered to anybody outside of the scientific community. And I think even the scientific community knew that the narrative had to be pushed, so even their results were irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was masks are good, wear them, otherwise you will be fined, marginalized, ousted from polite society.
And then people are people, so they're going to make it like a symbol of some kind. And then you're good if you do it, and you're bad if you don't do it. And then I get rite of passage to treat you like crap because you're a bad person.
Well, it's like if you see social media profiles where the person has their mask on in their profile picture, that tells me infinitely more about the individual's personal politics, religious views, and other things than anything else.
Especially when it's supposed to be a cute selfie,
right.
And they've got that blue like generic mask on. It's like you didn't even have the respect for the people that are viewing your photograph to put a cute mask on.
Or a mask that actually works.
Right.
Enough about that. So let's move on to something more cheerful. Like, where are you free in this country? Because we certainly noticed a difference here in the Pacific Northwest. We're not giving you exact locations. Don't even ask. But why are some places freer than others? And for those of us who are freedom-minded, the libertarians, the conservatives, people who are just tired of being sheep, maybe there's some liberals out there that are kind of growing a spine. Where would you like to move? Because we're seeing a mass exodus happen all over the country. Californians are fleeing to places like Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, parts of eastern Washington, western Oregon. I'm seeing mass exoduses from New York to Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, places in Georgia. We're seeing a lot of people from places like Ohio, Missouri, Minnesota moving down to the south and to the southwest. Obviously, all the blue strongholds are losing people.
Yep.
We've known this. Tesla moved to Texas, all right? A bunch of other corporations have been moving out. So why don't we just give everybody a nice little consumer guide on where to move in 2021? Because it's only going to get worse, people. As of today, Gavin Newsom in California, the governor, has put them into something like stage 5 lockdown indefinitely. Yeah, that sounds fun. So that's not going to result in any people moving out of the state as fast as they can.
No, that's going to make them want to stay longer.
So since they're going to stay longer, wink, wink, where should they stay? Where are some free places in America?
There aren't many. And you know what? It's mainly the states that people who live in DC and work in DC fly over, and they go,
Bunch of rubes,
yes.
rednecks.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how like the elite are the ones that suck and take all the fun out of everything? And they're like, if you want to make a baby, you have to have a mask on. You can't see your loved one pass away, their last final words. You can't see that. You can't go out for a beer.
No, but watch go to the club. You got to share those dancing nurse and doctor videos because that's helping.
Right. You can't go to church either because that's not essential or important. And so it's funny to me that the elites, who are the ones with the most of the money and all that jazz, are the ones that are making the places that they rule the least fun and the least desirable to live. And then they and their families, when things have gotten so cruddy, will immediately evacuate to places like Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, somewhere like a nice part of Arizona where it's a little bit more free. And then they turn those places into blue bastions and then they make those unfree. It's a virus. My goodness, it's almost like a virus or a plague. And so given that there is a plague happening of blue folks, making mass exodus, where should the freedom-minded people go to feel safe? I think, here's my opinion, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, places like the Dakotas are good. They're still free, and apparently they're getting more and more desirable because of Noam's influence, and I believe in South Dakota, Kristi Noem. North Dakota is similar. I don't know much about Nebraska. I imagine it's got to be similar. Yep. Texas is still sort of Texas, but it's starting to kind of be
It's becoming a battleground.
Yeah, I was going to say they're fighting over it.
They're fighting over it. So, if, Patriots, maybe you can overwhelm the lefty influx over there. Maybe that'll help. Places like Oklahoma are extremely red.
Tennessee.
Although places like Nashville are becoming battleground areas and turning blue.
Well, then you've got states like where we're from, where it's very, very red as far as the Council of State and the General Assembly and whatnot. But they've got that one lone governor that's as blue as ever and is making all the decisions for the mask mandates and things like that.
Well, if the rest of them capitulate, doesn't that just make them blue?
Yep. So where we're from, the General Assembly has done a good job as far as make sure we have a nice rainy day fund and stuff like that. And it's a good place to start a business. But then you have a really, really blue governor that they're like going like this. And so the mandates and like closing at a certain time and all that jazz is conflicting with the things that they've done. So then you got to weigh that, like just because, they've got more Republicans in office doesn't mean we should move there.
And it doesn't mean that the Republicans are doing anything.
That's true.
That's unfortunately true. For as much as they are my party by registration, and they do tend to stand for my platforms and beliefs, doesn't mean that the people who are in power in my respective area are actually doing much.
So probably need to do a little bit of research there.
Yeah. I would say here's my list off the top of my head. North and South Dakota, Tennessee, West Virginia, maybe Missouri.
Maybe.
Texas is still good. I would say Utah, New Mexico, maybe rural parts of Colorado, although the state is extremely blue otherwise. And Idaho, if I didn't always say that, and Montana. Honestly, Alabama, Louisiana to an extent, and of course, Florida. Florida is becoming kind of, it used to be like the joke, Florida man.
Right,
and it still is. But now everybody's moving there that's conservative from other places, and it's becoming the free place because DeSantis' response to COVID-19.
If I had to choose anywhere, I'd choose Texas.
Texas would probably be my choice as well. Well, there you have it, everybody. Start doing some research. Get out while you still can.
And comment in the comment section if you know something we don't about a state that maybe some folks want to move to that's a little bit more free.
Because here's the thing. You may have a blue state, but you may have a red county, right? You could be in Colorado, and maybe Colorado Springs is quite literally California reborn. But maybe you're the next county over and everything's great.
Right.
So we'd like to know. So, give us some feedback, send us some DMs on the gram or something like that, or shoot us an email. But we need more information to be able to share with our viewers, because not only are we doing research on this sort of stuff and considering relocating, but there's a lot of people out there who I know for a fact are as well. And we'd like to know where the red places to hide are, because things are getting weird.
Red places to hide, that's funny.
Right? So, on a more cheerful note, we have a very important announcement to make, and this is also going to explain why we've been a little bit of a hiatus from filming and producing content lately. And I'll let Z take the helm on this one.
Okay, so let's say a while back, I was unemployed, didn't have anything going on as far as health insurance, and so I did feel some bumps, if you will, going on my neck there. And I had some nurse friends look at it and just, like, at church or something, like, not in any official capacity. And they said, you need to get checked out. I didn't have health insurance, so I didn't go get it checked out. Well, then I got a pretty good job this year. And this year, the neck bubbles, Scott calls them, started getting bigger. And I got a little bit more concerned. And then he even noticed that my level of energy was deteriorating. When it hit fall. And I noticed it too, and it kind of scared me. So I did go to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. I don't know what stage yet. I have to go, when I go back home after this wonderful vacation, I'll do a PET scan and see if it's spread anywhere else. But as of right now, I will have to do chemo and go through all of that jazz. But I don't know how long or anything like that, because we haven't done a PET scan. And so this vacation was kind of like my last hurrah of having fun and smoking cigars and drinking the tears of my enemies, because I don't know what the tears of my enemies are going to do to me while I'm on chemo. So that's why we've been kind of in a hiatus, because I've either been super exhausted, I've been really tired, or I've been doing doctor's appointments and whatnot.
Yeah, biopsies, port installation, all kinds of other little pokes and prods.
Yeah, I've had a couple of surgeries, biopsy, and the port installation.
And so far, everything's gone well, and I expect that she'll make a full recovery and she'll be fine. She has good genes. She's not old. We don't know what stage it is, but if it had been really terrible, we were hoping that more would have presented itself. So
right,
we're gonna go with the best and work from there. But yeah, this has been our kind of big Hallmark Christmas vacation and last hurrah before she starts having to deal with the drowsiness and the sleepiness and the general funkiness of being on chemotherapy.
Yeah.
But we intend to still stick with the program. We intend to still produce content. And we have a few other exciting things that we're going to be producing that are going to be new content in the new year. You'll just have to bear with us as we deal with these challenges, but also producing new content. And, a lot's going to rely on her technical expertise. So we're going to have to make sure that she's in good shape to be able to do it. But we wanted to share that with all of you as we close out the new year, as we close out the year and go into the new year. And obviously, this is a really emotional topic, so I'm going to try and hold it together. But we love Z, and obviously, we'll be fighting with her every step of the way. So don't you guys worry.
Yeah,
she's in good hands. Shifting on to the next topic,
which I'm excited about.
I am too. So. It's been a long year, and we've said a lot of incendiary things, and we've stirred up a lot of opinions, left, right, and center. Mm-hmm. And I've actually been pretty proactive in trying to get a hold of people's thoughts. Mm-hmm. So this is a compilation of material that I've been collecting for mostly the last few months. And we've curated these questions, obviously, because sometimes questions get redundant. Sometimes people don't really ask questions. They just kind of vent at you. But we tried to get the things that I think summed up the spirit of most people's questions. And some of these are verbatim. Some of them are more of we decided that question would represent all the similar questions. But we're going to do this Q&A. She has not seen this list exhaustively. She's peeked at a couple. I have not gone through all of these myself, so some of these will be a surprise to me as well. But we will attempt to answer these as honestly and as forthrightly as possible. And this will be our end of the year Q&A session. You ready?
Yep. And I would just like to add before you begin that I've had quite a bit of the tears of my enemies. So this may not be the most intelligent Q&A that you've ever.
I was going to say, the tears of your enemies are quite red.
Mm-hmm.
Grape colored, I might add.
And they're strong.
Very strong. All right. So, first question. Mm-hmm. With everything that's happened in 2020, do you think things will go back to normal once a vaccine has been distributed to enough people?
No.
I don't either. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it already hasn't. They're already coming out with headlines and articles saying, just because you get the vaccine doesn't mean you shouldn't wear a mask.
And we're also, immediately the same day the vaccine came out, they were saying a new strain from England, which is more deadly, is coming. And so then maybe the vaccine won't work. And then the WHO spokeswoman is saying, well, this may not actually prevent transmission of the disease. So why?
What's the point?
Why get it if it doesn't work?
And also some people's mouths are going...
Yeah, seriously. I mean, Bell's palsy is a thing. Like, anytime you get a new rushed vaccine like this, that's to be expected in a small percentage of the population. A lot of that just gets hidden from public view because of testing trial processes. But now everything's kind of out there because everything's been rushed. So... I would say Pfizer and the others have actually done an astonishingly good job getting something out there. And if you look into the research of the virus itself, the way they're doing it is they're essentially using a blueprint of DNA for how a virus would be formed and injecting you with it to trick your immune system into attacking it and then filing it away for later defensive use. Mm-hmm. So it's quite brilliant, actually. And I hope it works. I really do. Because I'm usually pro-vaccine, but rush vaccines are going to have rushed consequences. Maybe not great consequences, but they will have consequences.
Like this?
Like half your face not working. Next question. Most people don't really care about interracial relationships anymore. I concur. But since you two are in one, I wanted to know, who do you receive...
I don't know what they're talking about.
Who do you receive more grief from about it? White folks or black folks?
Blacks.
She did not hesitate for a microsecond on that one. Maybe you should explain this one.
Well, it's not everybody. I do know some family members that would probably be like, "Oh, there she goes."
Your family's they don't care about that.
Not the ones you've met, I'm telling you.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, the ones you haven't met. And they may never say anything, but they probably would be like, there goes Zinga with her white stuff. But you remember specifically, there was one gentleman that said, I hate all things black. Like, I hate black culture. I hate black people. I'm self-loathing. And this, fine hunk of man, is just another example and more evidence to show that I hate black.
You just can't please people like that, though.
I don't care about pleasing people like that.
Good. I would say from my point of view, my family is more curious than they are disapproving. Like, they obviously have loved you since day one, and I'm sure you can vouch for this. Like, they've treated you like a princess. They like you more than they like me. I understand how these things work. But they just wanted to know you had good character and you had the same beliefs as I did. And that
you mean like a normal person?
Yes, just like a normal, healthy relationship.
That's
right?
weird.
But they still have questions because they don't have a ton of black friends. They don't hang out and go dance at black nightclubs, and they don't know the black inside jokes. And they didn't grow up around a ton of black people, so they have questions. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times those questions get lumped into racism or like bigotry. Like if you even ask the question, well, you must be racist.
Right.
And that I think is a shame. But most of the time, I think they just treat you like you're a human being, and that's that.
Yeah. I mean, they saw me in my bonnet.
They have seen you in your bonnet.
Mushroom head.
Checks your hair. All right, next question. Have you two set a wedding date yet? If not, why is Scott such a pussy? Nice.
We haven't. I will be honest. I really, really, really do think the cancer threw a wrench in plans.
Yeah.
Because now I'm going to look like a little baby monkey for like several months. Which really, I am actually sad. I'm not. But you got to have dark humor.
You got to laugh. You got to laugh when it's funny. Well, to answer this very, very sensitive question, I would have happily married her months ago if my parents didn't need to approve of her first. And
if we were orphans, we probably already
would have been married.
Because my family's like, ooh, we got to know who this is. Who is this person? And now they just eat you up with a spoon.
Now, where we live, we're close to her family. Now, as you can see, we had to travel across country to the Pacific Northwest to visit my family. This is the first time they get to meet her in person. So this trip was designed for them to not only give us a nice Christmas vacation together, but also to vet her for marriage. Safe to say things have gone really well. So, as far as the date is concerned, unfortunately, with chemo and the way things are going to go, that's kind of up in the air.
We don't know what stage I'm at or anything.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm waiting to hear a prognosis before I will ask her.
Make sure she's not damaged goods.
If she's not going to be alive in 6 months, I mean, why buy a ring? You have to return it.
I don't want a sick cow. I want as much milk and beef.
Why did you have to use that analogy?
I like cow.
You do love cow. Anyway, this heifer's prime beef, and I'm not letting her go. However, this did make me rethink things, and so that has postponed plans, and we have to talk more about this. So the answer is we don't know. I don't have a date. You'll get one. You'll know when I know. Moving on. A Second Amendment enthusiast, where do you draw the line on gun control? That's a big non sequitur from what we were just talking about.
I drew the line at the first bit of it.
Well, maybe elaborate on that a bit for our viewers.
I don't really think there's supposed to be any, almost none.
The only thing I would say is like any other public issue, like for instance, like rule of the commons, right? Let's make it really simple. Let's go back to like British law. Okay. Let's say I had like a nuclear powered rifle that gave off a lot of fallout within a certain radius. Okay, I could see that needing to be regulated to a certain extent by the federal government because I am not only nuking myself and my family, but the water supply and my neighbors as well.
But this is my issue with that because I believe we should even be able to have tanks.
I agree, but the tank isn't producing radioactive fallout.
Right. I think if you want to call it gun control, it should be making sure that the cray-cray among us are watched.
So you would advocate for something more like more focus on like mental illness and felons, which we already do with current restrictions on weaponry and like waiting periods, and you can't get a gun if you're a felon, et cetera, et cetera. This is all existing law. Mm-hmm. So you would agree with those laws? Yeah,
just like you get a guy that's schizophrenic or something like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's like, I'm not being prejudiced. They can't help themselves. They're being told to do X, mm-hmm. and they just do it. And it's even hard to punish those people sometimes. Like, you even have compassion on them because, like, I used to watch a lot of Criminal Minds, and you could tell the episodes where they were just like, this person was just riddled with demons, and there was nothing they could do.
I believe it makes no difference.
Okay.
I think that gun shop owner who turns down that 9mm purchase to that angry cuckold husband who also has some kind of bipolar disorder, mm-hmm. him not getting the gun that night that he intended to shoot his wife and himself with did not actually prevent the wife and him from getting shot in most cases.
Okay.
I don't think that this whole 72-hour cooling period really has enough data to prove that it actually works.
Okay.
I think if you're the kind of person who is intent on committing violent crime, you will do so with an illegal weapon, not just a legal weapon. You will go and find something that has no serial number on it in the hood, and you'll grab that and you'll use it instead. Or you'll use a stick, or you'll use a knife, or you'll use something legal. And I think that this idea that we can control crime with common sense basically doesn't bear out in the statistics or in the math. And I think a lot of people just do this because it makes us feel like we're doing something.
I don't know. I have to think about that more.
Now, here's the thing. If I own a gun that is literally giving me cancer every second I hold it, including everybody within a 200-yard radius, that's a problem, right? That'd be like me going to...
Well, that weapon is a problem.
Right. It's that rule of the commons. Again, if I take all my sheep and I graze off all the good grazing land and I water my sheep and then there's no water in the well left for anybody else, it's kind of a problem. We have to coexist, right? So I can't just be walking around with my radioactive pistol. However, except for that very bizarre, rare scenario that doesn't exist, people having guns, whether it's a cannon, a tank, or a freaking ship with a bunch of cannons on it, is none of my business. Mm-hmm. If they want to use that thing and they want to deter pirates at sea, cool. You know, if you want to have a tank in your backyard, great. Just don't fire it over my house.
But we were talking about this last night. The trust that the overlord should have for the citizens. Or, you know what I mean? Like, if you did have an arsenal, okay.
Yeah, here's the thing. A lot of people do have arsenals. You just don't know about it because they're responsible gun owners and they just have them.
Mm-hmm. I know a few people that have arsenals.
I mean as well. And it's one of those things where it's like, those people tend to know way more about gun safety and are much more careful with their weapons than the people who only have one or two and bring them out at parties, right? There's a difference in the way these people handle this stuff.
I'm also willing to have less gun control I'm willing to have less gun control, even though I know that maybe something bad can happen to me by some lunatic. Because every single time the government has taken guns away from the citizens, a lot of people end up dying. So to me, it's more probability that I'll die at the hands of my government than a lunatic.
I agree with that. And I would also say, to add on to that, the math also indicates that when these policies go into effect, they have the effect of disarming the law-abiding, not the criminals that they're intending to target.
So then now you have a high probability of getting killed by a criminal and your government.
You create a defenseless sheep population that is more vulnerable to wolves, right? And then they'll just say, well, you can depend on policemen and the military to protect you. No, you cannot. Time is real, right? Even if you have a really attendant and very well-trained police force, they can't be everywhere all the time at once. Mm-hmm. It's going to take them time to come and save you. And if you're at that point where you're already panicking because someone's trying to shoot you or has shot you, boy, wouldn't it have been nice to be able to shoot them back? Next question. Let's see. It's kind of interesting. I guess it's a parallel. What's your opinion on militias? Are they a necessary right to be exercised by the people, as they were in the past? Or are they just part of an outdated bit of history at this point?
I don't see how it could be outdated.
Well,
I mean, I can think of scenarios where it would be necessary.
I could see this both ways. Historically speaking, we had militias because we didn't really have a big organized continental army initially in the United States. And then when we did, they had to fold in a bunch of different militias in order to bolster their ranks to make formidable fighting force against the British.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I feel like when people think of militias, realistically, they're thinking of crazy people in the backwoods exercising rights that are no longer relevant for situations that don't happen and no longer exist. And I think most people view them that way.
But here's my thing. That story you're telling me about the actual white nationalists. Say something went down and your dad and the men of the neighborhood had to get together to fight them off for whatever reason because cops are 45 minutes away.
Sure.
To me, that's a militia.
Yes, that would be more like a community watch. And those can already exist to a certain extent. Here's my thing. I agree with you. I think militias should exist. I think they do exist, and I think that they're excellent. The only problem is that they've become, unfortunately, associated with conspiracy theorists and crazies and zealots and people who want to overthrow the government and are just sort of off in the woods planning instead of being a necessary apparatus to protect everyone's freedoms. Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing, right? Mm-hmm. The entire point of a militia was to fight off a larger military force that was taking away your attendant freedoms and rights and civil liberties. Mm-hmm. Well, gee, the way things are going, there's a reason that all of a sudden these people like the Oath Keepers and all these other militias are speaking up and saying, if certain things happen in government come January 6th, we're not going to respect the authority of that government. It's because they're actually following the constitutional mandate of these militias. So I think it has a lot to do with what you believe. You either see these militias as a bunch of hairy, crazy, rednecky idiots out in the woods playing soldier, or you see them as a necessary form of people protecting their rights and presenting a formidable enough group that is well-trained enough to actually fight off a larger, more well-trained and more well-equipped army.
Harry.
I don't know why Harry got in there, but it works. All right, next question. Ooh, a little bit of resistance. I like it. Do you think that what you two are doing with this show is helping or hurting? Shouldn't we be trying to start conversations and heal the divide instead of making things worse in the country?
Okay. First of all,
Heifer.
First of all, we already know what you think by the way you asked the question.
Right, the question.
You already think that we're creating a divide and we're not healing enough.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell how left this person is, but I know they are of the left simply by the way that the question was phrased.
I mean, let me see. Which one is it? The first
top one, yeah.
Do you think what you two are doing, we know what tone that is helping or hurting? Shouldn't we be trying to start conversations and heal? First of all, us talking is starting a conversation. The fact that you asked the question proves that. And heal the divide instead of making things worse. You got to explain to me how we're making things worse, because I feel like I never know how much. Like maybe sometimes, you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe sometimes exposing things and exposing lies and telling the truth does make things worse. But continuing in a lie and pretending like things aren't happening makes things more worse in the long run, if you ask me. Because at least you get to rip the Band-Aid off and then heal from there and find a solution to problems. Yeah. But you're just living a lie and going around like that. Ignorance is bliss, but you're still ignorant.
I agree. I mean, I really don't have much to add to that. The way you phrase the question obviously indicates you don't agree with our point of view, and it makes you mad. And the reason it makes you mad is because it challenges your preconceptions, your beliefs, and even some of the things that you have that you cherish. That's fine. That's what happens to us on a day-to-day basis. Welcome to the adult club. Yeah. Next question. As a liberal, I wanted to know if you two believe that we're in just a phase in America right now, or do you think this is the beginning of a civil war?
I think it's been begun.
It
has already begun.
It has begun.
I think it begun before we ever got involved in all of this. And honestly, I think it's just been snowballing. Yeah. And I do think it seems to me when you listen to your Rush Limbaughs and people who are like our parents' age that have been in this for a while, they do talk as if things have intensified as far as culturally, and they do talk about the left, and they're like, okay, well, you still with liberals, Now we're dealing with leftists. And so they do talk as if it has intensified. So I wouldn't say it's the start, but I would say the snowball has gotten much bigger.
I would agree with that. And I would say that I think that the evidence is present in Washington, D.C.'s recent activism. You know, everybody knows Antifa and BLM and various cohorts and Rose City and all them are kind of like affiliated. And they've been going out and being crazy and rioting and violent and demonstrating the entire year. And everybody knows they're of the left. Proud Boys and them counter-protested them and have become sort of the iconic right-wing equivalent. But it wasn't until DC that we saw the Proud Boys escalate to the same level on some areas as the Antifa and BLM counterparts, where they were ripping signs down, stealing things, burning stuff, and mobbing people and beating the crap out of them as they were fleeing. I think that's the indicator.
Yep.
I think the dam broke there. I think it was you had two opposing factions that removed all pretense of civility and just went to war with one another. Now, luckily, it was non-lethal for the most part, but it was injurious.
And it was funny.
And it was well-deserved. I think Tim Pool made a good point on this a while back where he was basically saying, he's like, I warned you, Antifa, I warned you, BLM, I warned you on the left that this would happen. And so you want me to feel bad for you when it does?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't feel bad for you. And I don't either. But I think that just to answer this question, I think that once you have violence in the streets, you either have so much violence in a small, contained area that everybody wises up and does what they can to prevent it from happening again. I am not seeing that. I'm just seeing more of the same, and I'm seeing people do everything in their power to egg it on.
Yep.
So I think war of the, North versus South variety may not be inevitable, but I think the culture war will continue, the sort of Cold War that we're in. But I think the violence will increase gradually.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far it will go. Let's see. Why did the religious right, I'm assuming the political religious right, have to take things so far during Trump's presidency? All progressives wanted was for people to be good to one another. Yeah. But the alt-right had to go and turn all of this into a culture war.
First of all, they put alt-right and religious people in the same boat.
Well, that tells us again where their heads at. Basically, anything that's left of socialism is alt-right.
But
I
think I just said this. If you agree, you're good, and if you don't agree, you're bad. So then, for some reason, all the things that you just talked about is the religious right fault.
You see, I can't really answer this question because it's coming from a faulty premise. Like, this person's mentality is basically everything I don't agree with is religious, alt-right, boogaloo.
Right.
Like, I can't really answer this question. I mean, if you think there's a culture war going on, it's probably because of people like you saying crap like this to people on the internet and pissing them off. And so when they pissed off people say things to you don't like and then you fire back, that's what a culture war looks like.
Right.
Welcome to the battle.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say to you. This one's addressed directly to Zynga. Zynga, as a black woman, oh boy, identity stuff. Okay. As a black woman, don't you think it's a disservice to be with a white man when there are so many good black men available? Well, obviously that one's yours. I give you the microphone.
Well, I didn't meet any of them. Where they at, though? Listen, okay. All jokes aside. Serious moment.
Serious face.
A lot of my friends married great black men. I'm not going to. I didn't meet any. I was not opposed to. When I met him online, I also met a couple of black gentlemen, and their thing was, what do you mean by being a Christian conservative? Swipe. I'm not talking to you. So everything was about black and everything was about my politics. They didn't like that. And so, I just wanted someone that I aligned with and that we could talk for hours about how much feminism sucks. And
that's true of me as well. Like, I didn't go out actively seeking any particular ethnicity or anything. I just said they had to be conservative, they had to be Christian. I knew if they didn't match those criteria, we weren't going to get along.
Also,
that's it.
White men like me, honey.
They really do. They really, really do.
I can't. I get hit on. I like black men, not so much. Not so much.
No?
I don't have the Beyonce hips and thighs.
More for me.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't on purpose.
All right.
They like me.
They do. Next question. Let's see. Oh, this one's addressed to me. Cool. Scott, having worked with and in law enforcement, what do you suggest to folks who are working in blue cities run by Democrats? Okay, it's kind of awkwardly phrased. I'm going to clean that up a little bit for the viewers. Sounds like this person works in law enforcement. They want my input on what they should do if they're working for a blue boss, basically. Someone who's a Democrat, or they're in like a liberal city or municipality. Run! Run, dude. Seriously. Run. Maybe you're like a lieutenant and you've got way too many years invested and you've got this sweet 401k all piled up. Maybe you can handle a couple more years of this. Fine. See how that works out for you. I'm not going to say not to do that. You've got family, you've got things going on, maybe there's some health issues you want to take care of. I get it. If you do not have a ton invested in an area, you cannot detach yourself without ripping your soul out and destroying your whole family, run. Do not work in law enforcement in a blue bastion. Do not stay there. Get out if you can, because you can be treated better, you can get paid better, you can get better benefits, you can have the respect of the people that you work with and work for, and your administrators and your bosses will actually treat you like human beings and not disposable pawns in a political game. Get out if you can. Next question. Zinga, does your religious community support your political beliefs and your show?
Not the show very much. Not, a lot of people don't watch it. I don't care. They don't have to. I don't watch this. I got my own stuff going on. So I've got other like friends in my church and stuff that do podcasts and whatnot. It's not personal. You know, I don't purposely go out and say I'm not watching their mess. I just don't. And I'm sure it's the same thing because their content is about different things that I don't really care about that much. Now, when I first started talking about my politics, it got a little testy. I was close to leaving my church because I could feel the looks I would get, and me and another friend, we both were like, "What in the world?" Because we didn't expect it, and the two of us are very, very outspoken. Recently, with the Black Lives Matter protests and stuff over the summer, my pastor started getting a little bit more partisan. Mm-hmm. Not that he worships Republicans or anything like that, but he was more direct about what the Democrat platform is, and people started changing their hearts and stuff. So I don't get as much of that, but I did consider going to a church that was a little bit more patriotic and would accept me more, because I did not feel welcome for a little bit, for a very, very short time, and then after a while I was like, why do I care? And I stopped caring, and I held my head up high and everything. So
okay,
yes and no.
All right, well, next question. This is addressed to both of us. Do you believe that Trump has any real shot of winning re-election come January 6, 2021?
Can I answer first? I don't know. Let me tell you why. When I got diagnosed, I just straight up did escapism. I haven't been very privy. Like, I'll see headlines and stuff. I haven't read any articles because I didn't want anything that would put me in a heightened emotion of pistification, because I was already sad.
So much pistification.
Like, I was already so sad and just was like, I finally have an okay job. My career is going in some kind of trajectory. I'm not like, what the devil? Where am I going? I finally meet the man of my dreams, and then my body's trying to kill me. So I literally watch mafia videos. Michael Franzese has a very, very good channel. So does Sammy the Bull Gravano. So that's what I do. So as far as Trump winning, I don't know. We'll see if he does.
Yeah, my 2 cents on it is he could pull a rabbit out of the hat and we could have a civil war on our hands. Mm-hmm. More realistically, Biden takes his little steal and he gets the White House, and everybody just has to accept it.
Right.
Sorry if that's not what you wanted to hear. Next question. This one's kind of vague. Maybe we can kind of condense it down.
Yeah.
Who do you think is responsible for how out of control things have become in America? Is there anyone to blame, or is it just too complicated?
I guess what do they mean by out of control?
I think what I'm picking up here is someone who's just talking about the chaos of 2020 in general. Is there anyone to blame, or is it too complicated? No, it's not that complicated. It really isn't. I think you can make it complicated, but I think it really is as simple as most people are cowards. They do what they're told. They don't want the social sanction from their neighbors or from authority figures. They don't want to risk their job or not getting a promotion. I think that's why mask mandates have become so bizarre and religious. I think it's the reason why COVID restrictions have become draconian in certain cities and not others. Look at the different philosophies governing those places. I think that the reason that you have China not suffering the consequences of its actions, even though it basically just tried to murder the entire world through either incompetence or malice, we don't know which, and the fact that they haven't been punished for it is criminal. And I think that it also presents evidence of cowardice on the part of our world leaders. I think that most people are so concerned with the phantom of stability that they are unwilling to risk any kind of short-term instability to do what is just. And I think that really just narrows it down. I think most people have become sheep because they've become too comfortable grazing for too many decades. And this is what happens. When push comes to shove, they capitulate instantly. Moving on. Do you think they'll ever let us take off the masks?
I think that we won't give them a choice before they tell us that we can take them off.
I think that's
my prediction.
I think that's half true. I think there will be a bunch of people in a bunch of areas that just never really comply seriously, and they'll know that. They'll have the data on that. They'll have the evidence of it, but they won't really say anything about it. And then there'll be places where people do it really religiously and are nasty about it. And since the COVID vaccine will make its rounds, eventually herd immunity will probably be a thing, or the government will admit that this is just now a part of life and it's just a new disease that hurts us every year during certain seasons, and people will acclimate to that reality. I think eventually people will just stop wearing it just out of sheer exhaustion. I don't think they'll ever actually tell you go ahead and take it off, though. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think we'll have to do it. Boy. Ooh, kinds of warm and fuzzy questions as we wrap this up. Do you think this is the last Christmas we as Christians will be able to celebrate in America?
No.
No, I don't either. I think even if they decided to just go whole hog and say, screw religious liberty and everything, people would still be putting up Christmas trees and passing out presents, because what are they going to do? Have the anti-Christmas squad going door to door?
Yeah.
Is that tinsel? Is that mistletoe I smell? Get down on the ground. No, this is the kind of stuff that makes people on the left think that we're kooks. Like, listen, I get it. They hate Christians, and if they could make everything we do illegal, they would. I believe that. But you also have to deal in reality. They know they can't push that far yet.
Yeah.
So yes, you'll still have Christmas. It just will be done through a mask, if you comply. Last question, and then we will wrap up this episode. Why do you think Americans have embraced socialism more so since Trump became president?
I don't know if it's more. I think maybe they just went like, ah! And then they just had to be so opposite of him that they just started screeching at the top of their lungs like demons. And I think it was more of a middle finger to Trump than it is like a maybe they actually do believe it, but I think what am I trying to say here, Scott? I think them being more vocal about it is just, I have to be so anti-Trump so everyone knows.
I think socialism is just another part of the leftist uniform at this point.
Yeah.
That I think most people don't even truly understand it or study it properly.
Yeah.
And so they just parrot what little they do know in opposition to people like us. It's just a way of showing your gang colors.
I mean, you can tell people don't really believe it. But like, I don't even think AOC believes it, even though she's one of the main ones. But she's selling a T-shirt that has didn't have a socialist agenda on the sweatshirt or something like that. And it was like $58. It was like $60 T-shirt or sweatshirt or something. Yeah. So that tells you right there that they really don't believe. Like, you can look across the board with climate change and gender studies and African American, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can tell these people really don't believe it, because if they did, they would really live their life. like they would play it out in their everyday life, and they don't.
I've met actual socialists who live in like little socialist type commune situations where they really do have no possessions and where they actually do share everything. And apparently it's pretty functional for them. It's like very small. And apparently the community that I'm talking about, I'm not going to go into detail and out anybody, but like apparently it fell apart due to health concerns. Like they were trying to make things work. Someone got really sick. They didn't want to use capitalist medicine or whatever, and that ended up causing a spread. And then they ended up having to like kind of like stay away from each other in quarantine and blah blah blah. But the point is like until then it was like a small community of like 16 to 20 people, and they were getting along great for like a few years. And then like a nasty illness.
But they were real believers,
and they were living their lives like according to the ethos of to each according to their needs. So like if one person was kind of down and out for the count because he got injured, like farming or whatever, the rest did like double duty to make up for it. Basically, they lived like a family.
But that's a true believer, though.
Right.
Like I know people who would say things about white people, but go have a white pastor will have white people teach their kids and go to church with a bunch of white people and watch the white kids, watch their white friends, white kids. They're not real believers. They haven't dealt with something in their lives, and so they just take it out on white people, but they don't really believe that the ish that they say.
Isn't it funny too? You look at all these really outspoken lefty politicians who spout and repeat this rhetoric. They all are married like to a white person.
So I don't think it's I can't remember the question exactly.
Question was why do you think Americans have embraced socialism more since Trump became president?
Yeah, I don't really think these people believe what they say. I think it's a trend a little bit, and I think it's part of the uniform, like you said. And I think they've just gotten more vocal because they have to be so anti-Trump. They can't be a MAGA person whatsoever. Like any hint of MAGA, they're like.
Anything that sounds. I think everybody, like I've brought this up in other episodes where people know exactly where somebody's going with a certain point before they've even finished it, and they know it's going to be a left or a right wing talking point. And so I think socialism is just one of those things. It's like this is the stuff we defend, capitalism's the stuff we fight. Doesn't matter. We're not going to really have nuance or anything like that. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been our final episode of the crazy that is 2020. We're going to get started with some really exciting new projects come 2021. Z will be documenting her journey with the neck bubbles and keeping you guys apprised of every step of that process. So that's going to be really challenging for her, but we're going to help her out. I'll also be doing a new channel in the new year. We'll give you more details as that comes together. But we'll also be continuing on with Two Americas and what we're doing here. So we just want to wish you all once again Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year, and keep your chin up and keep your gun clean and well oiled.
See you guys.